Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the QRL Show, the place where you come for the crypto and stay for the quantum. On today's episode, myself and Michael Strike are joined by Dr. Joseph Kearney, post-quantum cryptography expert, technical advisor to the QRL. We are here in beautiful Singapore, as you can see in the background view, and what we're going to be discussing today is the constraints for projects in terms of migrating to post-quantum. We're going to be breaking down some of the classifications of blockchain post-quantum readiness, so to speak, and breaking them down into a few categories ranging from post-quantum vulnerable to post-quantum enabled to post-quantum resistant, all the way to post-quantum native, meaning the blockchain was built with that in mind from the very beginning. So guys, first off, it's awesome to be here in person to have a nice conversation. There's a number of parts to talk about here.
Yeah.
Where would you guys like to start out with this? Where I want to kind of start out for the viewer, obviously, everyone viewing this, the last 12, 18 months, everyone and every project out there is bolting on the words post-quantum to a project.
I think that's the biggest reason, is trying to draw some clarification around what post-quantum security actually means and maybe distill them down into something that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think maybe it's worth starting at like the stark reality of like post-quantum vulnerability and like the bleak fact that a majority, almost every single project currently deployed is post-quantum vulnerable. I think that's.
And there's really no standards, or there's really no standards on how to use the words either, as far as what that reference is or what it means. So that creates a lot of confusion on social media and Twitter and things like that. So we'll break some of that down and talk about it. And
that's perfect. I think to start out, kind of, the viewer might be thinking, well, I see, they might be saying our project, and obviously they hear post-quantum, quantum resistance within the name, but when they see out there, when they hear anything from Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, you name it, they might be hearing, well, this is this project's take on how they are solving, when I say that in air quotes, post-quantum. Maybe we break down some of those classifications or categorize it a little bit so we can start to see the spectrum of quantum vulnerable meaning a project has done nothing, all the way to the end of post-quantum native. So let's start out with quantum vulnerable. There's blockchains. First off, what makes a blockchain post-quantum vulnerable? Like, let's just, a number of viewers are going to understand that, but let's start there for every viewer out there.
Joseph?
So I mean, the reason I say a majority of blockchains are post-quantum vulnerable is that almost every single blockchain in deployment today relies in some way for their security on ECDSA or EDDSA, so some form of elliptic curve cryptography. And as we know, Shor's algorithm running on a quantum computer will at some point be able to break ECC, EDDSA, ECDSA, and essentially hijack cryptocurrency. And that's a massive concern, because the amount of data that's already shared with public keys available, with authority keys for smart contracts and so on and so forth, it's going to require a major effort to upgrade every single one of these accounts and smart contracts and just about everything within the blockchain space up to a post-quantum state.
So what chains are we talking about here? We're talking about post-quantum vulnerable chains. We're talking about Bitcoin. We're talking about Ethereum. We're talking about literally 4, 5, 9s percentage of.
I'd say at the moment it's
99.9999%. Have some sort of have some sort of quantum vulnerability based on elliptical curve cryptography, based on the discrete logarithm problem.
Absolutely, and it's not even so much just the layer 1 blockchains, because layer 2 tokens, for example, ERC20, ERC721, they're all reliant on the base cryptography of that chain. So, for example, with Ethereum, every single blockchain that is built upon Ethereum is post-quantum.
Lamborghinis, if it's in a real-world asset. Half joke, but Well, when you're talking, I mean, there are real numbers associated with real world assets that are stored on chain that
So
are tied to
they have a
ownership.
dependency,
So
yeah.
this is physical ownership in the real world, and usually when we're talking about post-quantum security, and we're talking about a $2.5 trillion market cap or whatever,
give or
we're not adding in physical value of things, and those things do exist. So
We're also
it's
not,
a half joke,
yeah.
but
We're also tying in.
but it is real.
Look at the traditional finance and how stuff intertwines there too. We've seen classic cases in blockchain of how everything's more intertwined than is led to believe. Can we break down a little bit if someone hears, let's say people have, if they've been in the space for any time or whether they're new to blockchain, maybe they're bullish on a couple different projects. That flavors of that might be a little different, but someone really loves Bitcoin or they really love Ethereum or Solana, and they've probably seen in recent months that fill-in-the-blank project has probably said, well, this is our strategy around post-quantum. And naturally, some people hear that and they think of, oh, checkbox, they got that solved, nothing to worry about here. Let's expand a little bit on why that's not the case. It's not we say we're going to solve post-quantum. The underlying cryptography of that project is vulnerable, so they can try to bolt on post-quantum to it, but it doesn't make it post-quantum native. Like, can we? I want to paint a couple examples of maybe some, because different projects have different approaches, different timelines, obviously different ideas or directives as a project in general. So maybe if we can break into that a little bit, it can help the viewer. Whoever wants to start on this one.
I can take the first half. So when Bitcoin came out so many years ago, quantum computing was not a word that was used.
Yeah.
It was
Much more nascent than now.
today it's all. I mean, today it's all over X, but and a lot of projects copied the same asymmetric cryptography, which a lot of people don't know has been around since the 1970s. Asymmetric encryption and the discrete Lagrange problem are based on asymmetric cryptography that was created in the late 70s and then further developed through the 80s.
Yep.
For public-private key cryptography.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin has always been the gold standard as far as market cap, as far as trust, as far as everything. So in a lot of ways, a lot of projects copied the same type of digital signature algorithm, the same type of cryptography.
Yeah.
What projects didn't? What we anticipated years ago when we went post-quantum secure in 2018, but other projects did not anticipate was the post-quantum threat. So now you have this complex problem that has to be essentially bolted on and solved through a community of global developers, all trying to reach consensus on how to solve the problem, which all may have different philosophies, may have different agendas, may have different values, may have different interpretations as far as what the ethos is, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but also whether and what property ownership actually means, and whether or not something like that could be confiscated, even if it's done demographically. So nobody expected any of these problems to come up.
Yeah.
So if you want to remain viable, it's kind of like having a community. If you built up your project, you've spent a lot of time building the community. It's kind of like having shareholders. Okay, when AI came out, and you're a large company, you couldn't just tell your customers, yeah, we heard about this AI thing,
But we're going to ignore it. Yeah.
but we're not really going to do anything about it. I mean, it had crashed the price. So I'm going to correlate this to blockchain in that, okay, yeah, we know we've heard about this quantum threat. We know about this. We're working on it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing. You can't not say you're doing something, but a plan does not equal a solution. What do you think?
Yeah, Joseph, piggyback on this.
Yeah, I think the key point is this is, we sit here and talk about this stuff, but it is inherently difficult. Like it's an inherently difficult problem, and as you sort of alluded to, like you first of all got, okay, what digital signature do we want? Well, you've got ECDSA, which was perfect for cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
Like it was incredible.
We have to think about the time of when, hey, in 2008, in hindsight, obviously things look obvious, but no, keep
Oh, of course. Yeah, like you verify fast, you sign fast, you've got small key, public key, you've got small signatures. It's perfect for cryptocurrencies. This is why it was picked over, say, RSA at the time, which was far more common. And it's...
Shor's algorithm was out for maybe like seven or 6 years by then.
Yeah,
6 years by then.
exactly.
So, but that was still a completely theoretical, mathematical, abstract argument against something that is unlikely to exist.
Exactly. And hindsight's 2020. Like turning around and saying, oh well, why was this never thought of at the time?
And the thing is, it's an evolution of, hey, it can continue to evolve, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
But I think when people are, one of the parts where when people see that right now, especially, we're seeing people. Strike used the shareholder example. I think some of those shareholders being, advocates or followers of different projects, I think some of them are getting a sense of false confidence, I would say, in terms of when they hear that the project is, whether they have a post-quantum, this is their agenda. But I feel like some of them just think, hey, they're going to have it solved. They're talking about it. But a project overall has to do a lot more. Obviously, you wrote Bitcoin downtime, an entire paper on this specific to Bitcoin of how it would work in theory, and then in the wild how it could potentially work.
Yeah,
that's just one example.
Absolutely. I mean, the original vision of that paper, and I think I've said on the QRL show before, like the original vision of that paper was much wider. Yeah. Like the original vision was to look at it from the sociology aspect, from the economic aspect, from plotting out that entire timeline, and that paper got far too large. Like it was completely unrealistic to actually try and put that all in one paper and explain just for one single blockchain in Bitcoin how that process would work. And it's kind of going back to what I was saying, like you first got to make a decision on which signature scheme you want to use. And that's a very, very, very important decision, because you've got to live with that decision for a period of time. And while we hope that a lot of cryptocurrencies will actually build in cryptographic agility as a result of this.
Well, if they're already deployed, the code's already deployed, they may not have, not having considered this problem, the code itself may not be easily modular at the source code level to be crypto agile.
Of course. So that's the first decision that you've got to make. Then you've got to make a decision on, okay, how are we going to upgrade? Like, do we want to employ some kind of clever zero knowledge proof system? Do we want to employ some kind of registry system? Like in the case of Ethereum, do you want to employ some kind of account abstraction element? Like there's a lot of different decisions that have to be made, and each one of them is as contentious as the last.
They all have,
and each of each of them is going to need to be done. Hey, not only does the entire project need to jump through this hula hoop, but there's a lot of parts that it can go off the rails in a number of, of ways. But back to you, Strike. A
lot. I've always said this. I have a lot of respect for blockchain developers, and they've come up with creative solutions, things that I would never have thought of.
Yeah.
Zero knowledge proofs, for example, being able to show that you know something without having to show what it is that you know.
Just to go back to what you're saying, so you're talking about the EDDSA paper that was released a little while ago, where it was showing that if the chain, so for example Solana, the rest of the names are escaping me, that the other blockchains that rely on EDDSA, because EDDSA is determined in such a way that you require a seed phrase, you can do a zero knowledge proof of seed phrase.
Exactly, you can do zero knowledge of the seed phrase, but what if you're using Bitcoin Core?
Well, you can't. You don't
have the prerequisite seed phrase.
Yes.
So then that automatically excludes all of those transactions from a zero knowledge proof solution.
Yes, Essentially, it would create that kind of.
I don't know if we've ever talked about that too much.
Yeah, no, I think we mentioned it.
I don't think we ever mentioned it. But the point is, all of these solutions have some sort of caveat in that there is no pure approach to anything that actually solves it without making some sort of compromise on selecting winners or losers, making compromises to the philosophy, the ethos, deciding winners and losers. They all have some sort of compromise.
Part of this is, and this just what you said, I'm just going to add on to this. Every single time we see, a major or any project that mentions, hey, this is whether it's PQ bolted on in a silly way, or actually, hey, you know what? This smart team of developers actually, hey, maybe they're taking it more seriously now. With each one I've seen, caveats come with all of them, as you just mentioned, Michael. When someone, I think the question that a lot of viewers have is, well, when I see that, they're not just gonna just say, hey, I don't like that project, I don't like this project anymore at all. They probably still have confidence in the underlying project for the time being. How should viewers maybe, how should they think about, as stuff starts to evolve, should they be looking at that project and saying, okay, hey, well, they say they're going to do this down the road. I really hope, is there some items or parts that are components that they should look for to see, okay, well, is this project just bolting on the words post-quantum, those two words, or does it seem like they're actually moving toward, because the thing is, a lot of people, we aren't, as you are, we're not post-quantum cryptography experts, so the viewers, what would you tell people the best way to, in terms of viewing it? For them specifically, they might not just be, a Bitcoin maxi, for example, but.
How to evaluate the project?
Yeah, or even upcoming. Let's say a viewer, whether it doesn't matter where they sit in the spectrum, retail or high net worth individual, wherever they fall on the spectrum, they see in 2 months that a project that they are an advocate for, or maybe they hold it in a digital asset portfolio, fill in the blank. They see that they mention post-quantum. How should they look into, hey, is this signal or is it noise?
I think the key part with that is this is a long process, and there are some blockchains out there that were post-quantum vulnerable, and have moved into what I'd like to call post-quantum enabled, where it essentially means that as a user you have the optionality, you have the ability to secure yourself post-quantumly. You have the ability to use post-quantum cryptography within their ecosystem, and the difficulty of that varies from the few chains that have done it, and it's a admirable and incredible step forward in my opinion. I think it's important that there's less talking about it, discussing it, and so on and so forth, and actually give your user base the ability to use post-quantum cryptography if they're concerned about it, because otherwise that concern grows and grows and grows. But the key is that if you're post-quantum enabled, it doesn't make you post-quantum resistant. The whole chain as a whole needs to be resistant to. The example I'd give is a lot of these chains where we're now post-quantum resistant, when in reality they've added some feature that allows users to secure themselves in a post-quantum way. If a CRQC, a cryptographically relevant quantum computer, i.e. a quantum computer capable of running Shor's algorithm to the extent that it could disrupt the blockchain industry, if one of them came online tomorrow, would that chain be secure, or at least I'd even go as extreme as survive, because I think that's the critical thinking element that you need with it. And in my opinion, there aren't any blockchains that weren't originally quantum native that are there yet.
Do you think, based on years and years of experience from a post-quantum cryptography perspective, do you think that the developers of blockchain projects that are what we would consider the category of post-quantum enabled, do you think they have a false sense of confidence that they are more post-quantum resistance, when really, do you think they know that there's still that part of it's not really post-quantum through and through? Do you think they're trying to look at it of, hey, we're trying to put on the front to our entire user base that were post-quantum, and when in reality they know that it's a bit of a veneer. And I know it's going to be different, but I don't know. This is more just.
This may be me coming across as skeptical, and I don't know whether you've got a different view on it, Mike. But these are some of the best cryptographers in the world. They know. They understand. They understand blockchain very, very well. They understand cryptography very well. Yeah. To some extent, I understand it. It's an easy marketing ploy, and that isn't to dismiss what they've done. Like, at the end of the day, taking that first step is one of the most critical ones. Like, allowing your users to secure themselves is, in my opinion, more critical above everything else. I know there's the arguments of what to do with cryptocurrency that can't upgrade, and that's a major argument, but giving your user the ability to use post-quantum cryptography is critical. So I don't mean to dismiss that, but my answer is no. These are incredibly smart people, and some of the best cryptographers.
And honestly, all of these cryptographers are a part. If they're a part of a project that people care about, they have built something or been a part of building something that has done something right, and so they are fully incentivized to be fully behind their project. So based on the underlying foundation of that project, they were not post-quantum native from the very beginning, so they're working on the frame of a different house than if they would have. So it's a different. But
I agree. I agree with you. Like I said, I agree with you on the brilliance of the cryptographers that are working to solve this problem. I've seen solutions come out that I never would have thought of. Mm-hmm. At the same time, you have the smartest, some extremely smart people trying to solve what is essentially an impossible problem to solve cleanly. Yeah. There is no pure way to do that, and if you're going to talk about how you're doing it, if you're trying to bring a narrative as to how you're proceeding, it's human nature, and you must. I mean, there has to be a very strong incentive to err on the side of, yes, this is being worked on, this is solvable, this, we've got this handled. But at the same time, I think that a lot of them have some inner, let's call it heartburn, as to what's being coded, as to what they have, what they're being asked to say, or what they're compelled to say, if you will, because of what's at stake.
I would also argue that the
conflict of interest of itself is the conflicts of interest are disparate enough to. Between how difficult to solve the problem is, and what is actually possible, and what it means as far as what it could do to confidence. Because if you start to undermine trust in the project, trust is everything. When it comes to blockchain, that's like the one thing you can't compromise.
It's a core tenet.
If not the core tenet.
Well, I mean, the only thing you can.
What do those words look like?
I mean, the only thing you can rely. I mean, code is law when it comes to cryptocurrencies. You trust in the code, you trust in the cryptography. Right. If you don't trust in the cryptography, then the trust in the system falls apart. That's the only thing that you have to trust in. You don't have to trust in the other users. You don't have to trust in anything apart from how the code works and that the cryptography is secure. And those are the only two things. But I think kind of going a little bit back to what we're talking about, I think it's no surprise that the projects that have already started on this are generally the ones that already had more complex cryptography. Mm-hmm. Generally zero knowledge proof based cryptocurrencies and so on and so forth. These guys understand a lot of it, and I think it's that's unsurprising.
No, that makes sense. In terms of we've over many years, obviously, we've been talking about the topic of post-quantum in relation to blockchain and crypto for many years, but over especially the last year, and even dating back a little bit further, we're seeing the tides change a little bit in terms of projects as a whole, individuals, those in the industry and just outside of the industry are taking this quantum thing much more seriously. We're seeing projects now, much like with AI, of people building on the two letters in AI, we're seeing people bolt on post-quantum. How do you foresee there's still a huge bucket of projects that we would consider in that post-quantum vulnerable classification. A number of them a bigger percentage of the pie chart of them are gonna look at that lifeboat and in the cold water with a whistle that's not really working and look up and say, hey, we should probably do something too. Do you think they kind of finally change their tone to it? If they do, are some of them going to be too late? I know there's a couple questions within one, and one of those is a bit broad, but overall, from your post-quantum cryptography opinion, and also Michael and I, us putting in so much time and looking at it, how do you see this evolving over the next 6, 12 plus months from overall with projects in the direction they may move, because it's going to continue quantum computing progress from all the big companies. We're at the same time as all these changes are happening at from a blockchain project level, post-quantum or quantum computing progress is continuing to go up as well. So the urgency is very likely gonna continue to steamroll.
So
yeah. So take it from me. I know there's a couple things in.
Up until this point, we've talked about essentially what the post-quantum problem is.
Yeah.
And what companies or what blockchains need to do in order to solve it. Now, up until that point, I think a lot of the things are mostly inarguable. This is a very difficult problem. There's very smart people working on it. There are no clean solutions that don't make some sort of compromise ideologies. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
This is where extrapolating current events into the future becomes a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
So I don't know. As far as let's just use Bitcoin as an example. As far as like what the future of Bitcoin looks like, going post-quantum sphere. I don't know if you want to answer the question first. What you think, or
yeah, I mean, I've got my opinions like on how that should progress. I'm not a Bitcoin core dev. I am not the people making those decisions. But my view is the first major step that needs to be achieved is that the users need to be given the ability to utilize post-quantum cryptography. Whether they use it or not is two different things. But giving the users that choice, that's the first step. Like that.
Let's say that's done.
Let's say that's done.
Let's say you bolted that on. Users can now there's a post-quantum secure DSA, BIP360's in. Yep. You can do this now.
Then there needs to be a discussion.
This is where it gets foggy.
Yes, yeah, I completely agree. So my downtime paper, that assumed that the main mechanism for upgrading was just people send transactions. Yeah. You send a transaction that had an ECDSA on the one side, and you went to MLDSA, FNDSA, SLHDSA, doesn't matter what that is over the other side. And then you're post-quantum secure, and you go off into the sunset. And every single user has to do that. The minimum amount of time that could take is 76 days of downtime. In reality, that is using 100% of block power, block size.
That's in very best conditions.
And the assumptions that were in that were ridiculous. In reality, that process, because of how slow people are at doing these types of things, it's more likely years. Talking 2, 3, 4 years. Like there has to be a limit at the point at which, there has to be a block height where you go, okay, we stop at that point. Yeah. Or potentially, maybe there isn't. Maybe there isn't a point at which you stop that. But this will bring on to a different discussion around.
You have to interlace the transactions. Yeah. You have to have the post-quantum secure transactions of people migrating at least interlaced in keeping the network up with normal regular transactions.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we can agree there.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But then you need to. Well, you've got another decision to make. So kind of going back, like as I was saying, like in my paper, we assumed that the transition would take place by essentially every single user has to just send a transaction and upgrade. Yeah. There is the opportunity that Bitcoin at some point might introduce some kind of very clever system, some zero knowledge proof system that will facilitate that upgrade. That's sort of the second step. The third step's the hardest one, and it's an incredibly difficult question. It's around the dreaded. it's around the dreaded, what do you do with anybody that can't upgrade?
Yeah.
But also kind of contained within that is there any other protocol changes that are needed? We know that MLDSA, FNDSA, SLHDSA, XMSS, which take your pick from the actual standardized cryptography.
Or something not standardized.
Or something not standardized.
But we're not out yet.
Yeah, true. But a vast majority of them, the signatures, the public keys, they're larger. That's going to take up block space.
Yeah.
Do you accept the TPS drop or not? That's another question. I don't want to make any old school Bitcoin devs shudder at the thought of another block wars, but
Increased post-quantum security doesn't seem to increase efficiency, though.
No,
it doesn't. It does not
no,
seem to do that.
No, it absolutely doesn't. But I think each of these individual questions have the opportunity for months, if not years, of debate.
Yeah, and I think each question opens up another pack of questions, which that happens when in these topics such as these. But it just goes to show how complex and all the moving components, and that each project, as we said with the caveats, comes with if you don't start as post-quantum native, you are gonna, if you try to move to post-quantum, it's probably gonna come with some of those naturally. If for viewers that might be viewing this, they might be viewing this and saying, hey, I have confidence in these projects that they're gonna do the right thing. Obviously, no one person that's viewing in on it is gonna, maybe their confidence is gonna be different, but what do you recommend? Some people might be viewing this and being like, can anything, is there projects out there that are post-quantum native that, obviously I know there are. We've just talked on a ton of stuff. We've talked on the classifications of being fully post-quantum vulnerable, not doing a whole lot yet. We talked on post-quantum enabled, and hey, starting to do a little bit of stuff. Post-quantum resistance, doing a little bit more. And we get to the very final classification, the strongest, the most secure of those, which is post-quantum native. Obviously, our project, QRL, Quantum Resistant Ledger, falls within this category. Can you guys both, from a post-quantum cryptography perspective, from myself and Michael talking on this for many years, can we give the viewer, as we close out this episode, a number of viewers watching this might be listening to this episode and saying, wow, I really thought that Bitcoin or Ethereum or fill-in-the-blank project was maybe doing more than I thought, or maybe I took some notes down and I needed a little more research to see when they say post-quantum, does it mean post-quantum or partially? Let's give the viewer, first off, there could be a couple parts within this, but the first off is maybe first to define what post-quantum native means, and then from that, explain that when a cryptographically relevant quantum computer that is sufficiently powerful enough and can run Shor's algorithm, when that happens, why can't it break post-quantum native blockchains? But let's first start by defining, Josephine, what is post-quantum native when we classify that? I
think you can define it pretty simply as a blockchain that has no known quantum computing attack vectors. That's simple. Yep. So, but going further than that, has never had any known quantum computing attack vectors, and that means you have to have had some kind of post-quantum signature scheme from Genesis. Yeah. You have to have had like your project built from the ground up of as post-quantum, and I think that's once again, like going back to those that aren't, hindsight's 2020. Yeah. But QRL's been thinking about this for a very long time. I think QRL's probably one of the very few people that's been thinking about it as long, if not slightly longer than I have. So I think it's but it's I think the critical thing now is that every project that is created from now on, if you're starting some kind of token, if you're starting some kind of any kind of DeFi project, it should be done either at the moment until there is some kind of quantum resistant blockchain. It has to be done on a quantum native technology. So I mean, for the example that I'll give recently is Arc released their paper. So Circle's Arc is going to be post-quantum from Genesis, and that isn't surprising. Like that's how seriously these major companies are now taking this risk.
The number of projects that are doing that can be counted on one hand.
Yeah, and so
Post-quantum security since Genesis of an L1.
Yeah.
And we've been talking a lot in this episode about on a project basis of, hey, well, where do projects fall within the classifications that we've outlined? When individuals, whether we're talking retail all the way up the stack, let's even use the example of Solidity developers that are building applications, DeFi, NFT, fill in the blank, you name it. When they're building and making decisions for where they're going to build, you want to build for somewhere that has a strong future in mind. You don't want to buy a house in a neighborhood that you realize it's a flood zone a year or so from now, or fill in the blank any example. You want to build somewhere where you know that it's going to have longevity. So I know I'm using one example. We're talking macro in a number of these areas. But Strike, can you, Joseph, thank you for defining first off what post-quantum native is. Can you touch on, obviously our project has been around since 2018, post-quantum native since day one. Can you talk about why that allows, maybe for the viewer, I know this, but for the viewer, how does that allow it to have more flexibility, peace of mind going into the future in terms of what people can do with it in a number of ways? I don't know.
Well, peace of mind. You don't have to worry about the quantum threat at all. So with QRL, the first iteration from 2018, we were post-quantum secure using XMSS, which is NIST. Recommended hash-based signature scheme. We're moving forward with QRL 2.0, which is undergoing 2 independent third-party audits right now. Yeah. We're enabling EVM compatibility, which will allow you to recompile, take existing projects that are running on Ethereum, for example. If your existing project, you can take the source code, recompile it, and for essentially little to no cost, run it on an additional chain, which will be QRL 2.0, which is the code name is Zond for that project. If you've seen that, so that's real. I mean, that's the solution we've provided, and we've tried to provide the most pure approach to post-quantum cryptography, because a lot of us have been in blockchain for a very long time. We're not spreading fear, uncertainty, and doubt. We're here to help.
If anything, we're
acting as essentially as a hedge.
Yeah, and overall,
we're just try and save the ecosystem.
Yeah, and if anything, we're just having more and more productive conversations, and it's a refreshing that. We've seen over the years at conferences of people thinking, you guys, this FUD thing, 20, 30 years away, to now people kind of, it's a bit of acknowledgement, but it's years in the making of a lot of hard work, development, consistency over time. Seeing around the corner has led to a place of now others are finally starting to come to the same realization that this quantum threat is something that should be taken seriously, and it's obviously.
I might ask if you're worried if you think that it's really 20 or 30 years away, why are you worried about what we're doing?
Yeah, so I'm actually giving a little tip of the cap to the many out there. As we've said, there's a lot of smart cryptographers, a lot of smart people out there across the board that are acknowledging this threat. They want to do something about it. If you're viewing this video to this point, you're engaged enough of wanting to either know more or potentially take action and do something. But Michael, any other last points, Michael or Joseph, to add? I think the big one is just if you want to go deeper down and understanding more, we obviously have a ton of content around various topics tied to post-quantum at the intersection of that and blockchain. Any last words in closing out on the specifics of post-quantum readiness or the classifications for the audience out there?
I get asked why run on QRL 2.0 and when it comes out, when it hits Mainnet, and I think there's a better question. I think why not? The barrier cost of entry is going to be so low. Most projects should have the ability to be able to run on multi-chains. There will be maybe some coordination from as far as how that gets interlaced with the community, just being on multi-chains, but at least being able to tell your customers that you have a purist post-quantum secure solution in mind for your project. I think it's going to be of great advantage at least trying to bring confidence and trust, and we all know that trust is at the center of basically everything that we're talking about.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts on that? I think we've covered quite a bit. Any last words, Joseph, for the viewers?
Yeah, I think the main thing with this whole area of interest, I think it's about thinking critically and doing your own research. I think that's the key part. It's
I think that's the hardest part too.
Yes, no, sorry.
But investing the time, it makes a big difference. Of listen to what we're saying. Listen to it. Look at a lot of stuff. Read into it. If you come across something that's someone's adding post-quantum, you now from the beginning to the end of this video, you already have a bit more knowledge at your disposal to being able to maybe bucket it within there. But then, hey, do some more research, look into it, decide. Depending, are you deep in the weeds as a developer? Are you looking into Are you in blockchain for another reason? But researching it more, that can never hurt, no matter where you sit.
I have an addition I want to make to that. I was like why QRL, for example? If I'm looking at strategic partnerships for my business, I want to look at who's looked into the future and who's got it right, and who's changing their story and who's not changing their story. Since we started this project, you and I have been making content on this for like 6 years. 6 years now.
6 years, yeah.
The core message has been the same.
Yeah.
We've been talking about we've been talking about quantum computer, sufficiently powered quantum computer. That's what we called it at the time.
Yep.
Now it's called a CRQC.
Yep.
And we talked about the attack vectors, and we've been always had the same message. The story never changed. When we selected into 2018, when the DSA was selected for XMSS, there were over 70 NAST submissions.
Finalists from that.
Finalists of what could have been ratified as a government recommended DSA that was XMSS and LMS. You want to look for who's not, in my opinion, I want to look for who's got the future right and who's not changing their story day to day in order to fit the narrative.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing we've done really well.
Yeah, well, really, there's a lot to it. I think, just as we said, a number of these questions tied to post-quantum classification and readiness lead to more questions. I hope for the viewer that after watching this video, hopefully you have a number of good questions. So if you do, obviously, a few great places to go is to, if you're not already join our QRL Discord community. Vibrant, smart, like-minded people are in there. Also, any questions, for future episodes, if you drop any in there, drop anything in the comments. But mostly just continue, exploring. There's never, you can never, no matter how long you've been in the space. We're talking to Joseph, you're a post-quantum cryptography expert of. I'm sure you're even coming across stuff, and you're like, that's a great question. Like, look in. So keep doing that. And for the viewers, we really appreciate Joseph, you joining Michael and I here in Singapore in a nice venue to be able to have this discussion.
Yeah.
And for those at home viewing, until the next episode, hope you keep your digital assets post-quantum secure. Thank you.